Alright guys, so this is where we stopped at our last lecture. So we have these nodes and they've been saved in our local component. Let me just close them here real quick. So I wanted to mention something. Let me see, it's still showing that error. So you see, whenever I start typing in something here, we get this error. A component is changing an uncontrolled input of type text to be controlled. So that's because I misspelled something. I misspelled the state from my add new node component. So here I have node. Maybe you didn't. Maybe I didn't misspell it in any video tutorial, and maybe that's because I was trying to change stuff around, so that's why it happened. But in case you have this error in the console, please check and fix it, because this state doesn't match with the state we have in our components and in our render function. So I'm gonna save it like that. I'm just gonna close it really quick. So if we go back here and start typing in, everything works fine. Okay, next thing I want to fix is this login form which is popping up even though if we are logged in our nodes dashboard. So if I refresh now the page, we can see the login form is showing up for a second, and then after that we see our dashboard. That's because it takes a little bit of time until our application is receiving the data from Firebase. So to avoid this thing, we will add a spinner which is gonna spin until we get the data from Firebase. To do that, just go on images.google.com, and for learning purposes you can use a spinner from here if you find one. So just search for spinner icon and make sure you choose an .gif extension spinner with a transparent background on something like this. Well, a spinner like this. Okay, I'm not gonna save this one. I have one in my computer, so this is the spinner I have. I called it loader.gif, and in our source folder, let's create another folder which is gonna be assets, and then I'm gonna see if I can drag and drop this spinner here. Okay, so I have it saved in my assets folder now. Let's open our app.js file, and here, so we will have a spinner. The spinner is gonna show up here. So basically what we will do is we will have another state here which is gonna be loading, and it's gonna be true by default. And then here in our render function we will have an if which is gonna check this state loading. So if this is true, then we return the spinner. And we will have here, oops, let's say we have a div class name spinner, and then here we have the actual spinner. So we have, let's first import it. So in our, on the top of this file is going import spinner from, we have assets and slash, we have loader.gif. Okay, and now here we can use it now. So image source equal to spinner, alt tag is gonna be loading, and just close this image tag now. Okay, so this is true. Now if we save this one, we should see just the spinner spinning on the page. So this is what we see right now. Now in our component did mount, we will use the set timeout function. So we will have a set timeout function which is gonna update this state after a second from the time our browser loaded the application. So we will have set timeout, and then we will have a function here And then here we want to update the state, so we have this set state, and we have loading set to false. And then after this one we will have, let's see, we got this, and here let's bind this, and here we will have, well, if we bind this, okay, all this needs to be in this parenthesis. Okay, and then here we have a second. Okay, looks good. Now let's see, we got this, bind this. Alright, so let's save it, and then let's open the browser, and we see the spinner. We see the spinner, and then we don't see the login form anymore if we are logged in, of course. Now if I'm logged out and if I refresh the page and one more time, we see the login form. Now I'm gonna log in. Okay, we see the dashboard, refresh one more time. So this spinner, it shows the user that the data is being selected from where there is the app is processing in the browser, so the user doesn't see that login forms every time he's refreshing the page and he's logged in. Okay, now let's do something. Let me see. Well, I have this class. I have this spinner class in my app CSS file. If you want, you can add it. So there is a spinner class, and I set the display to table and then the margin 0 to auto, just to center it. And then from here, let's go ahead and start working on our Firebase functionality. So we go, where is it called? Oh, nodes. So we come here. This app JS can be closed. Okay, so we have these two components. I mean, these two nodes in our state. Let's get rid of them. Okay, and then here, see, we got rid of the state. So what we will do here is we will insert we will update this component a little bit here. So we take a backup, we do a backup, make a backup of this state we have. We assign all the states we have to our backup variable. And then after that, we push a new state. We have the content here, we push the new state and the new ID. And then after that, we should insert the state into the database, which is on Firebase. And then after we do this, we will create a component will mount, and that component will mount, it's gonna select the data, because whenever we will refresh this app, we won't see this data from Firebase. So let's go ahead and work on this one, so you will understand while we're working on it. Okay, so we have it here. Let's see how we can do that better. So first of all, we should import the configuration file with our session and everything. So let's import fire from okay, so we are in notes. Okay, 1, 2, we go 2 steps back, and then we have config, and then here we have fire. Alright, now here in our add new node component method, let's do, so using this backup variable, actually let's start with the fire. So okay, let's use our configuration to the database. So we have fire.database function. Now this function, it's a Firebase predefined function. You can find it if you search on Google for Firebase. Actually, if you access the firebase.google.com/docs, you will find all the documentation about this Firebase, and how many functions and methods and how to insert and how to select, how to remove data from the database. We are using the we're doing web development now, so just click on that, and then from here you can choose, just reading step by step and each function, how it does and how to import everything and how to use all this. So you have here all analytics, Firestore, all these products available, libraries. And again, Google knows almost everything about this Firebase. If you have any, you can just search on Google if you have any questions or something is not clear. Okay, so let's go ahead and continue. So we have a database, which is a Firebase predefined function, and then we have the reference, and this reference is like if you work with MySQL before, it's like a table name. So we have here nodes, and then next we have push, because we want to push a new node into this object, which is like a table. So we have push here, and then here in our push function we write the data we want to push. So there's going to be an ID, of course, for our nodes, and this is going to be this state nodes length, and then we will have, of course, the node like this. So we assign the ID and then a node. Okay, and then here next we will have to check if the data was sent. Then we will update the state. If the data wasn't sent, then we will just log the error. So we will have here then function, and here we will have, let's say, data. Then if the data was sent successfully, so we will have here success callback. Then here we will update the state like this. And then after that, if it catches any error, then we want to output this error to the screen. So I mean, to the console, we'll console log it like this. Okay, so I'm just gonna delete the space from there. Here we can add another comment, for example, error callback. Okay, now in our, so if we check right now the Firebase, let's go back to Firebase and let's work a little bit on this Firebase. If we go to the console, because we've been there before, because we worked on that login form, and click on Firebase, choose your project, and then from here click on database. Now by default, this Firebase is gonna open you the Cloud Firestore, and you make sure you click here on this drop down menu and choose the real-time database, and then from here click on roles, and from roles make sure you set to true the read rule to be true, and then the write rule to be true as well. Well, this is gonna open the access to anyone who has this configuration file to your database, but just for learning purposes, this is it's good enough just to learn how it works. And then after that, let's see, everything looks good here. I'm gonna save this file, and we're not getting any errors for now, hopefully. So if I refresh the page, we don't have any states in our local state, of course, and then the database is empty now. So if I type in something here, let me actually open the console to see if we get any errors. Well, this warning is by default because it's letting us know that we're using the development SDK. So if I click add node, we can see that the node is showing up here. And then if we go on Firebase, we can see this is the node key, and then we have node ID and node content. So if I add another node, it's being added there as well. But if I refresh this page, let me just clear this everything. So if I refresh the page, these nodes are not showing up anymore, just because the local state is empty. So we need to use the component will mount method, which is gonna update the state. It's gonna do a snapshot of the data from our database, and it's gonna assign it to our component, our state. So we have component will mount. We won't have any parameters here, and we will basically do the same thing. We will assign everything we have in our state, and then here we will use our file configuration to the database, use the database function, and then here we'll have the reference, which of course is nodes, and then here we will have once, just because we get this data once every time. So we get this once we refresh the whole application. So we take it just once. We don't re-render this data every time this component will mount is being called. So we have once, and then here we get the value, and here we have a function, and this function is taking a snapshot. Okay, get a snapshot, and then here we have the using the snapshot. So this snapshot becomes an object. Now we should loop through this object and push each node in our backup state variable, and then after that we will update the state with the new nodes from our Firebase. So the render function could output all our data to the screen. So we have here snapshot. We have snapshot for each, and then we have function child snapshot. So we get each child of this snapshot, and see here, and we push it to our backup state. So we have backup state, a backup variable, I'm sorry. So push it, and then we have the ID, which is backup state variable dot length +1. So each new state is gonna have the ID incremented, and then we have the content, which is the child snapshot dot value, and then dot node. Okay, something like this. And then after this, here we will have this set state. So we have everything in our backup state variable. Now let's update the state and assign all this data to our state. So we have this set state, and we have nodes, and we have backup state. Alright, and then after we do this, just to make sure, let's console log the state to see what if we get any data in our state after we refresh the page. So I have here this state. Okay, let's save it. Let's open our browser. So we see this spinner. Well, for some reason we don't see the data from our Firebase. Okay, we see here that we get the data. Actually, we have it in our state, but for some reason our it's not outputting data on the screen. So let me see here. One state. Well, I think that's because of the same issue we had with the login form, because it takes a while until we get the data from Firebase. So look, if I add something here and click add node, we see the previous ones as well. So and then if I'm going to Firebase, we can see all of them are here, and then there are here too. Look, if we refresh, it doesn't show up. So that's because we should add a spinner. Let's add a spinner here, which is gonna spin until we get the data from the Firebase. I think that's gonna fix this problem. So let's create another. For that spinner, we will use, of course, we should have another state here, which is gonna be loading, and it's gonna be, let's say, true. And then we will have a component did mount, and then in this component did mount we will use the same functionality we used in our app.js, which is the set timeout. So we have here component did mount, and we have here set timeout function, and then here we have this set state. So we update the state loading state to false, just to make sure they match. Okay, so false. Alright, and then here below, let's bind this, and then here we'll have, let's say, 2 seconds. Okay, now wherever we have our node here, our loop, okay, now we should add an if statement right here. So here will be something like this state loading. So if this state loading is true, then we will show the spinner. By the way, let's actually import it. So import spinner from how many steps we should go back. So we are right now in our node. So 1, 2. So we should go up 2 levels. We have 1, 2, and then here we have assets, and then we have loader.gif. Okay, we have the spinner here, and where is that? Where is it? So we're here. Okay, now here we will have another, let's say we will have another div class. It's going to be a wrapper. So we have div class name, let's say spinner. It's actually the same one we use for our app.js, but then here we will assign another class for our image. So we have image source, oops, it's gonna be spinner class name, let's say img spinner, because this spinner needs to be a little smaller than the one we use for the main component, because that's really big. And then here we have alt tag, let's say loading. Okay, alright, we got this. Else, if this is false, then we loop through our object. Yes, so if this is not true, then we'll loop through our object, right? This. Alright, let's see what happens if we save it and we go back. We see the big spinner and then this big spinners. Alright, so this fixed the problem. Now we should go ahead and add this class in our app CSS file. So here we will have spinner img spinner, and then here we will have the max width. Let's do 30 pixels. Okay, just save it. Let's go back and let's refresh the page one more time. We see the big spinner, we see the small one here, and then we'll see all the data from Firebase. And then if we add new stuff, it's there. We just close the console. We add new stuff, it's there, and if, like we have right now 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, we have 5. If I refresh the page, we should see 5 nodes. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So we have all the IDs 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5 here. Alright guys, so that's it pretty much for this tutorial. I could also just to give you a challenge, add a button here on the right side of each component, which is gonna say, for example, delete. So whenever you will click on that button, it's gonna delete the state from our local state and also from Firebase. Now to do that, you'll of course need the documentation from Firebase, and I can tell you that you can use the remove item from Firebase database. So there is the remove function. Well, you can find it here because there are people who already do, but this is gonna be your like homework, and just let me know how it went. If you did it, just leave a comment and let me know. I'll be really happy to see and take a look. Or if you have any other questions, please leave them in the comments, and I will do my best to help you out, guys. Or if I won't be able to answer, there may be somebody else who would have the experience and could help you out. Thank you very much, and see you in the next tutorials, guys.